Good morning. Good morning. You've heard the statistics. Well, 3 years ago, last May, the Casey Foundation published an aptly named report, Early Warning. This report laid out the statistics, grounded them in the research, sounded the alarm, and issued a call for action. The campaign for grade level reading was the response to that call. And we set out to move the needle and increase grade level reading by 100% in 24 communities and 12 states, and then we migrated the number from 24 to 50. Now let me admit really at the outset that there are a number of very smart people who urged us to change the name. They said the campaign for grade level reading. That is just too boring. Just too boring to get anybody to sign up. Now, because they were smart, we wanted to listen to them, but we were sort of distracted by what we were hearing on a year-long listening tour that followed the time when Gail Hayes and Cindy Guy and I went to the Casey board and made the pitch for grade level reading. That listening tour was telling us some things that seemed to have strategic importance. One, it's telling us that there really was a surplus of good intentions, that a whole lot of individuals and groups and organizations were in the area all doing their own thing, raising their own voices with little or no discernible effect. Secondly, it said that philanthropy was part of the problem, that philanthropy was financing fragmentation, funding silos, and insisting upon and rewarding program outcomes with no evidence that these program outcomes could aggregate up to scale. These findings really pushed us toward committing very early to 3 strategies. Strategy number 1, the big tent. Pulling together all the different voices and organizations, the usual as well as the unusual messengers, and trying to see whether we could commit around a single outcome. 2, looking squarely at philanthropy and said we needed a philanthropy that would be less equal opportunity investing in what works and what doesn't work, and tilting more of its resources toward what works. And thirdly, these are the 3 Ps. We thought we needed to encourage and promote high fidelity replication and scale of promising programs in promising places with promising plans. You know, there was something else that came out of that listening tour, because we launched at a time when the dominant narrative in the nation was not unlike what it is today. And that is that our politics are broken, partisanship is rampant, polarization, it seems unavoidable, and therefore we have to settle for paralysis and gridlock. And our listening tour suggested that a whole lot of communities were basically sick and tired of that narrative. And moreover, when you turned away from that narrative, you found something that really was a consensus which was shared by Republicans and Democrats, by the right and the left, by folks who lived in rural, urban, and suburban America, in the red states, blue states, and purple states. And that consensus was this, that our nation would be better, stronger, and more secure if we had a generation of high school graduates, prepared for college, prepared for careers, and prepared for military service, as well as the post-secondary credentials needed for a workforce that can compete in a global economy. That consensus was pushed along in many respects by a growing awareness of the world in which we live. And within that consensus, there was an intuition that children should learn to read. And that intuition was bolstered by a common sense understanding that children who learn to read probably would do well, and children who didn't probably won't. And so it's building on that strong research and on the common sense, we essentially moved the campaign for grade level reading right into the slipstream of that consensus. And what you hear us saying time and time again is that if you care about high school graduation, you have to care about third grade reading. And that children who read proficiently at the end of third grade, they tend to graduate from high school. Those kids who are unable to read by the end of third grade will have significant problems graduating from high school, especially low-income kids. That consensus has served us well. And as we've tried to move it forward, we knew that there were three pieces of the puzzle which had to coexist if we were going to move the needle. The first of these is quality teaching for every child in every setting, every day. And notice we said quality teaching in every setting. We didn't say quality teachers in every classroom. Ours is a more robust assertion, and we call all three of these assurances. Assurance number two is one that asserts that we need seamless systems, plural intended, of care, services, and supports that will cover children from the prenatal period through third grade. And by insisting on seamless systems, we betray our suspicion that as currently organized, the gaps and cracks, crevices and cliffs which confront families as they have to seek the services and supports that they need basically represent an obstacle course to be negotiated at one's peril and to be conquered only by the most organized, most persistent, or the truly lucky. We think we can do better than that. And the third assurance, and this is the assurance in many respects around which we have organized much of the early phase of the campaign, is that we need to mobilize communities to do only what communities can do, and that is to move off of the sidelines, get onto the field, into the game, helping schools to succeed with the children who will be failed even by good schools in well-functioning school districts. These children are the children who start out too far behind to catch up by third grade, given the resources we spend and the talent we have. These children won't catch up by third grade. These are the children who fall farther behind during the school year because they're simply missing too many days of school and too much instructional time to be on grade level by the end of third grade. And if you think of a kid who misses a month of kindergarten, a month of first grade, a month of second grade, and a month of third grade, that child is almost mathematically eliminated from being on grade level by the end of third grade. And then there are those children who lose ground every summer and return to school in September, farther behind than when they left in June. We think that attending to the challenges posed by these kids is one of the best things communities could do without abandoning the responsibility to hold schools accountable for the kids they have and that the kids they prefer to have, and to be persistent and insistent to the point of truculence that schools have to do better, but understanding that schools cannot do it alone. We challenged communities to step up, and they did. And across the country, we now have 134 communities in 35 states, District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, who have joined the campaign for grade level reading. Mayors and civic leaders in these communities have mobilized 1,600 community organizations and countless citizens, supported by 100 local foundations, to step up and invest in programs which ensure readiness, attendance, and summer learning. You know, the efforts of these folks in communities all across the country leave us more confident today than we were 3 years ago that this is doable. And by the way, none of these folks have suggested we change our name, just to get back to that. You know, they tell us that there's some transformative potential of putting a stake in the ground around a measure of a goal, and there's something terribly important about seeking out and then investing in consensus. And they leave us with the optimism that we can capture in 6 words: more hopeful futures for us all. Thank you.